You're tuned in to Shake, Rattle, and Goal, the official podcast of your Springfield Thunderbirds.
Going out into the slot, Conklin with space, fires, he scores!
Hosted by Matt Baker and Steve Forney. A show that's everything Springfield hockey, with interviews including players, coaches, and staff.
The Springfield Indians repeat as the Calder Cup champions.
Listen to this podcast on all major streaming platforms and wherever you download podcasts.
In his first year at the helm, Kevin McDonald and Drew Bannister have the Teamers in the Calder Cup Finals.
Watch the podcast on the official Shake, Rattle, and Goal YouTube page at SRG Podcast.
And now, here are your hosts, Matt Baker and Steve Forney.
And this episode number 31 of the Shake, Rattle, and Goal podcast is proudly brought to you by our friends at White Lion Brewing in Tower Square in downtown Springfield and their new location in Amherst. Your pregame spot for Thunderbirds games, now also by our friends at YOLO Healthcare Consulting, bridging the gap for those traversing the healthcare landscape. And by our friends at Landscaping That Fitz. As spring is in the air, it's time to revitalize your outdoor space with Landscaping That Fits, proudly serving the East Longmeadow, Agawam, Springfield, and Wilbraham areas. Alongside Matt Baker, I'm Steve Forney. Worlds collided. Sunday was at White Lion, and Rob from Landscaping That Fits walked in. It was like a twofer. It was like a twofer for our sponsors. So, Matt, how are you? How's things?
Doing well. Finally getting outside a little bit with this nice weather, and here we're recording Tuesday evening, but rain in the forecast. But hey, I'll take warm weather. Turning towards warm weather, I'll take that any day. How about you guys?
Yeah,
you all well in the Forney household?
For now, we'll see where the day brings it. Tomorrow, a little birthday celebration for myself, so it's exciting. But again, we got a half day. Our kids in Agawam got a half day tomorrow, so it's like,
yeah,
what am I gonna do there? So it never ends. That's the other thing too, is like the both of us. It's like baseball, lacrosse, gymnastics.
Soccer.
I still got dance for my daughter, soccer. Holy smokes, man!
I'm busier than ever.
I
have a hand in coaching 4 different teams right now. It's nuts.
Insane.
It's nuts. It is.
So speaking of coaching, we are going to talk a little bit about the coaching staff here with the Thunderbirds and in the Blues organization. We are going to talk a little bit about the roster, and I think we've complained a lot, at least I have, about St. Louis kind of just hoarding our players, not playing them and not sending anybody else down and kind of leaving us out to dry. But I do think there are other factors at play as to why the team has struggled the way that they have. And we do have some other things to talk about as well. But for me, a bit of a backbreaking week. You go up to Canada, you play teams that on paper you should beat. And not only do you lose, but you get outscored in 3 games. I believe it was 16-7. And we talk about the shot totals and how they've been, doubled up in shots. Now you're doubled up in goals. And it was a pretty tough weekend. I don't know if you had any takeaways, Matt.
It was a tough weekend. I will say this though, a little bit of a side note. I think, you and I, we probably aren't alone in sort of, our feeling about this version of the Thunderbirds. It's a bit disappointing. It's a bit of a love-hate thing, but I'm glad they're not the Marlies. I'm glad we can watch a team that, win or lose, you can feel like they respect the game and respect their opponents. And I don't know. I just have such a bad taste in my mouth the way, you and I, we were going back as far as, like how they're going after Duzak. And look, I don't know. Maybe I don't know what really happened in that breakup, but to jump a guy from behind, I don't know. I just.
Especially when you're winning. Especially when you get the lead. Just let it go, man.
I have no problem, going, targeting a player, so to speak, in a scouting report. And, hey, this is the guy we need to hit. This is a guy we need to send into the boards to send a message. I have no problem with Sam Bitten after his brother gets checked, squaring up against the guy. You're looking at your opponent, you're squaring up, you're both drop. I have no problem with that. I think that's good for the game. I think it's good for the fans, and it's needed to sort of help police the game a little bit. But I don't understand why I don't think we need to make a huge deal about it, but like I'm just glad our team isn't like that here in Springfield, you know, and I know it's the AHL, and I know players are on the move all the time, and maybe one year we'll get a guy who's a bit of a goon, you know, but I don't know. I don't like going after a guy who clearly is outmatched and has no business wanting to fight you after a few slashes, and then you attack him. I have no desire to see that, and I have no desire to see any player on any team basically being jumped from behind towards the boards, driving their head into the ice or to the boards. I have no desire to watch that, and I'm just, you know, again, we could be disappointed about the loss. The loss is up in Canada, but I'll just say I'm glad our team doesn't stoop to a Marlies kind of level and kind of just play in the slime. That's just I wanted to make sure I said that, because I might not be all roses and positive when we talk about the rest of the stuff with the Thunderbirds this weekend and kind of wrapping up the season. But, you know, I feel like this team, a fight, a game is fine. You know, you respect your opponent. How many times on both sides, you know, you see a Sam Bitten fight and a little nod afterwards. You know, I know you hear it in the penalty box. You guys are in the hey, nice scrap. It's good for the game. It helps the game. But nonsense like that to me takes away from the game. It takes away from a win. It takes away from the play. And I don't know, that stuff I'd like to see taken out of the game.
Well, even you look at a guy like Imama on Belleville, who Sam wanted to go. He obliged. They just swung the heck at each other and then tapped each other on the shoulders and went about their business. Like, Imama is a guy who respects the game. And guess what just happened? He got called up. So,
and good for him. And I have no problem with that.
Right.
You know?
And there's a guy who respects the game. And, you know, I go back to Bobby Farnham, you know, here in Springfield, who would hit everything and fight everything in his path. But he was, I don't want to say never, very rarely dirty about it.
Yeah.
Face to face. You want to go? Let's go. There was no jumping guys, throwing off the gloves, pounding them when they're on the ice. You know, he talked a lot of smack. He fought. He was aggressive. I don't really consider him to ever be a dirty player. Now, there have been guys coming through Springfield. I mean, Stéphane Fournier, who I always called my Canadian clone, because he's Stéphane Fournier. I'm Steve Forney. But, I mean, he was a guy who, like, just didn't get it and just would throw helmets and just would have temper tantrums and stuff like that. I think with Toronto, I think it's organizational. They overpaid in Toronto. They overpaid Ryan Reeves just to go out there and bash people. And I respect Ryan Reeves, but, like, clearly they're like, well, let's just go get the biggest, baddest dude and way overpay him. And it's like, okay, well, he's like 35 and he's not going to last very long. But, like, I think that it's an organizational thing out there.
Good point.
I mean, you know, Duzak's 5'10". The guy who jumped him is 5'9". So at least it wasn't Kyle Clifford again.
Yeah.
You know, but
I just don't get, like, find a way to check him into the boards and square up in the game. Like, I have no problem. I don't know what happened to create such bad blood between him and the Marlies. I have no idea. Clearly there is. I have no problem if you have a problem with a guy and you find your way to check him into the boards or square up or just flat out square up against him. I don't like the jumping from behind and trying to put him into a headlock and driving ahead into the ice or, you know, close to the boards. I don't understand what purpose that is. Oh, that's not hockey to me. Yeah. Any other thing, like hockey fight, 5-on-5 scrap, I have no problem with that.
Yeah, and I mean, that was in the middle of the school day, so I don't even know if I caught a lot of the replay, but from what I gather, I don't even think Solov threw his gloves off.
No, he just jumped on his back.
So, he wasn't even planning on fighting him. He just wanted to grab him, toss him to the ground, and crack his head to the ice. It's like, well, what are you doing, man? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? So, I think that's a Toronto thing. I'm glad we only see them twice a year. I think you get more respect from a team that you play like every other weekend, like Hartford and Bridgeport. And I mean, those guys battle all the time and I think that there's respect between Sam Bitten and the guys that he's fighting against. Like,
Mhm.
so even Providence had got a little chippy there for a little while, but it never escalated to the point where guys were doing sort of ridiculously dirty things. So,
No, I mean, I think to be fair, like going back to the Providence thing, probably the dirtiest thing, I believe it was Kalinuk when he was fighting Lizelle, kind of, in that 8-0 thrashing. That was borderline, but
Yep,
it
sure.
was still within, and then it was dealt with the next time Providence came to Springfield. It was a fight. And then it was dealt with.
And it was done.
So I have no problem with the fighting and the policing of itself. I think that's part of the game, and I'm fine with it. It's just, I don't know. I don't want to be a broken record, but
and real quick, in respect to the Thunderbirds, because after the last time they played the Toronto, the team that should have been going out there and cheap shotting and grabbing people from behind was Springfield.
Yeah.
After what they tried to do to Duzak, if you're Springfield, you're like, all right, I'm grabbing every Marlies player and I'm tossing to the ice, and they didn't.
Mhm.
It was the other way around. So I was a little annoyed by that. And I mean, one of my takeaways, and I guess kind of goes with that, is I am glad to see that the team is not laying down. I think they're losing games because they're disorganized, not because they've quit. And, a guy we picked on a lot, Jacob Vrana. I think Jacob Vrana was the best player on the ice. And again, I get the game
this past week. Yep. In all 3 games. I
mean, I thought he was excellent, and he seemed to care, and he seemed to be going after it. And he was the fastest skater, hardest shooter. So they're not laying down. Now there's 5 games left. They haven't been mathematically eliminated. What happens the last weekend of the year when the games don't matter? I don't know. But to be at this point and where they are in the standings and how the end of the season has gone, and to know that they're not just booking tea times, that's appreciative as a fan.
No, look, there was fight all the Wednesday game, and I think we've highlighted sort of the challenges that a school day game bring. The energy in the arena, and you have both teams fighting for playoff spots. But you look at that game, and really there was fight from the Thunderbirds. I think going into the second intermission, you're down 4-3. And, after the first, you're down 3-1. You scored 2 goals in the second. You're within striking distance, and they kind of just ran out of steam there in the second. Friday's game against Belleville, a little bit of a different story. They couldn't crack the goaltender there, losing 3-0. And then you had Saturday's game up in Laval, and again, up to the third period, I mean, you're tied going into the third, you're tied 4-4. And although being outshot, I believe, in all 3 games, they weren't doubled up in shots. Saturday's game, they were outshot 37-35. Friday's game, albeit a 3-0 shutout, they were outshot 29-25. Wednesday's game, pull it up real quick. They
37-35. Oh no! Oh yeah, you go ahead. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong.
So on Wednesday's game, losing to the Marlies, they outshot them 36-28. So the play, the hustle, they're not laying down. They are going for it. I agree with you. I just think it's a bit of disorganization. It's a bit of just lack of chemistry. If you look at the lines, and this is no slight to anyone else, but you have guys like Dickinson, Holscher, Biakabatuka steps up this weekend. You have, and again, this, I'm not saying this in a disrespectful way, but you have ECHL call-ups all over this roster right now, and every line is kind of picked and moved around, and so it's a bit of an AHL slash ECHL line. So it's got to be tough, got to be tough. And even again, not knocking anybody, but you have a guy like a Sam Bitten who towards the beginning of the year, we were like, play him more, and he's playing fine. But now he's become an every night guy where maybe you would have liked to see him every 3 games, not once a month, like we did see at the beginning. You wanted to see more, and he brings energy. I don't think he's a liability, but you're just, when it comes down to it, talent on a line-to-line level. I think we're giving it their all, and just falling short this weekend.
Yeah, and again, no help. I mean, there's college hockey players signing all over the league. None of them are signing here. Half of Quinnipiac's roster's gone.
Yep.
St. Louis wasn't even mentioned on guys like Colin Graff. So it's like, okay, well, I guess we'll wait it out. I thought Sam had a nice night Saturday. I thought he had a couple real good scoring chances late in that game. And you're right. I don't think he's a liability. It was nice to see Braden Guy, by the way, in that fight. Boy,
that was good. That was a good scrap.
Dude, one shot right to the noggin. One other thing from the weekend I wanted to mention was Zarenko, and I don't feel like he is right. I think he's fighting an injury.
Just had a kid too.
I mean, I was going to get there. He just had a baby. Well, his wife did. So now, that's a whole nother mental. Goalies are so mental. That's a whole nother mental element to your preparation, to your lifestyle. One other thing you're worried about. I mean, I don't know about you, but like I was kind of a partier. And then the minute I had a kid, I was like, oh my God, I have to not die. It's like your whole mentality changes. So but I do think he's fighting some sort of injury. I was kind of surprised he went 2 out of those 3 games. I would have went Ellis 2 out of 3, just again, knowing what we know. And again, you trade away Subban, you don't replace him with anything. Like, I mean, you look across the league, Providence is playing DiPietro and Bussy and the other kid. Teams are rotating 3 guys, and and then, by the way, they just signed another college kid, the Boston organization. So it's like when these, I think we said it last week, when these guys get hurt or they hit a cold spot and you got 3 games to play, like now what do you do? So, I think so. Z had a tough weekend. I mean, he gave up 6 on Wednesday, 7 on, well, I guess one was probably an empty netter, maybe. So 7, the 12 goals in 2 games. I mean, I don't think he's, and let's not forget too, this is probably the most hockey he's played over the course of a season in a while. I mean, last year he was backing up Hofer. So, I don't have it in front of me, but I bet he didn't play more than probably 20 games, whereas now he's playing closer to 40. So, you know, you're playing a lot more hockey. So I feel for the guy. I don't know what's going on injury wise. I remember he tweaked something in warmups a couple weeks ago in Springfield and continued the game and actually played well. But I don't know if there's something going on there with him. So there's something to keep an eye on. Could just be
like, injuries linger. I do want a quick, Adam Gaudette hitting his 40th goal. So right now he's by himself leading the AHL there, 64 points. He's still at a plus minus a plus 10. So, he's not, I wonder if, and look, he's been the most, if not the only consistent light shining on the season all year long. So by no means am I looking to be critical of him, but I wonder if he's pressing a bit too much, trying to force some of the offense a little bit here down the stretch, but he's still at, again, plus 10 at a 1.03 points per game. My goodness, without Gaudette, holy smokes.
Yeah.
But
and the penalty shot goal was ridiculous.
Pretty beautiful.
I wonder if because I agree. I think he's trying to do everything. And I don't think that's a criticism. I think he's literally like, he's looking around. He's going at all the people he's played with this year. And he's like, well, where's Walker? Where's Dean? Where's Bolduc? Where's Pekka? Where's every guy he's played with? He's like not playing with now. And you look around, you go, well, screw it then. I'll just do it all myself. So I get that. But I think he understands the importance of this time of the year, and he sees the standings, and he just says, I'm just going to have to do everything myself. And whether or not that's right or wrong, that's his mentality. Now
that's where it is, and
now he got 4 goals this weekend. So, I mean, maybe pressing works, but situational pressing, I guess. I don't know.
So, and you can never blame the outcome of a season on one weekend or a few games. It's in totality of the whole season. And, you know, because of games that were played in November and December and January, and right now the Thunderbirds have put themselves in a position where they cannot afford, they have no sort of leeway. It's you got 5 games left and you're down 4 points. You have to have the mentality of, I got to win them all. Mathematically, they're still in it. But again, now you are looking at a situation where most likely for the Thunderbirds to make the playoffs, they're going to have to do something that they have yet to do all season, and that's put together a winning
String 'em.
streak.
Yeah, string them.
That's, I mean, I don't think they've had a 5-game point. Well, no, they have. I take that back. But you're asking them now to win 5 games in a row. They have not done that this year. So it's tough, but it's not because of how they played this weekend. It's not because of how they played, you know, in one weekend stretch. It's in totality this whole season, games that were in November that coulda, shoulda, woulda been won. Same thing December. You know, so
they left a lot of points
here
on
we
the
are.
table. Yeah, a lot of points left on the table. And it's funny, I just opened up Facebook because some folks left us comments and things to talk about. And the first thing that popped up was Malcolm Subban walking out of the tunnel in Columbus. We record Tuesday night. He's making his debut tonight in the NHL, or not NHL debut, but his debut with Columbus in the NHL.
Columbus,
so,
sure.
You know, I get they wanted to give him an opportunity to do that, but, you know, right now, future considerations are doing nothing to help this roster.
Yeah.
So.
And I wonder too, I like to, you know, create my own conspiracies, but
yes,
we know, you know, we interviewed Tommy Cross early in the season and found out that he's in the Blues scouting departments and with that organization. I know him and Subban used to be roommates and still, you know.
Sorry, did you say Columbus? You said St. Louis, but Columbus.
I'm
right?
sorry. Yes.
Yeah,
thank you.
Columbus.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, you're good.
So he's in with Columbus, and I just wonder if you know, there was a little bit of, hey, let's get my buddy up here and give him some time, let him play for a playoff, let him get some NHL stuff. I don't know. I like a good conspiracy, but
especially
nonetheless,
when you're not giving anything up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take a free Malcolm Subban. Why not?
Yeah.
You know?
I no ill will against Malcolm Subban. I've always thought he was a solid goaltender and a good player, and seeing him as close as we did this year, I gained respect for him as the person he is. So good for him, and you know, wish him well.
So we do have plenty more that we want to get to, but I do just want to mention that the SRG podcast, proudly sponsored by our friends at White Lion Brewing and their new location in Amherst on North Pleasant Street, of course, right in downtown Springfield at Tower Square, 1500 Main Street, the place to go prior to Thunderbirds games. Parking, although that parking garage is looking pretty mint, not quite ready yet. So what I recommend you do is park in the Tower Square garage, swing into White Lion, show them your Thunderbirds ticket, and they'll validate your parking for you. While you're there, grab some Boomer Nachos, Seuss mac and cheese, some Hall of Fame wings, along with the, what did I have? It was like a blueberry marshmallow sour beer.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Oh, that thing was excellent.
That's good. Yeah.
And don't forget, you can find your favorite White Lion beers in your local liquor store cooler. I will say, I think the special of the month there is a patty melt. I love a good patty melt. That's one of my favorite ways to have a burger. So go down to White Lion, get yourself a patty melt. Whether it's Amherst or in downtown Springfield, a proud sponsor of the SRG podcast. Make sure you tell them that the fellas from SRG sent you. By our friends at YOLO Healthcare Consulting. YOLO Healthcare Consulting offers education, training, tutoring, coaching, and mentoring for healthcare professionals and students. Founding owners Yolanda Mero and Lola Rios are doctorate-prepared nurses with over 40 years combined bedside, academic, and leadership nursing experience. They also offer assistance to individuals navigating the healthcare system for long-term care and home care planning needs. They're founded right here in Western Mass. YOLO Healthcare Consulting are the ones to contact to help you bridge the gap. If you're traversing the healthcare landscape, you can reach out to them at yolo.healthcareconsulting@gmail.com, or you can give them a call at 413-627-0609 and tell them that the guys from SRG sent you. And speaking of landscaping, by our friends at Landscaping That Fits, you can unlock the secret to a lush, weed-free lawn with Landscaping That Fits' exclusive weed and feed lawn service program, serving the East Longmeadow, Agawam, Springfield, Wilbraham area, and now my house for the weed and feed. Their program is designed to elevate your outdoor space to new heights of beauty and health. Experience the difference as our expert team nourishes your lawn with premium nutrients, promoting robust growth while eliminating unsightly weeds. Say goodbye to tedious weed pulling and tedious fertilizing, because I don't want to do that. And say hello to vibrant, envy-inducing lawn. Let landscaping that Fitz handle the hard work while you relax and enjoy the results. Call 847-0338 to secure your spot in their exclusive weed and feed lawn service program. There's now one less because I'm in. Or you can go online to landscapingthatfits.com. Check them out on social media too. They're all over Facebook. They keep that thing updated pretty well. If you just like pictures of beautiful, well-mowed, well-manicured lawns, follow them on Facebook because they post those all the time. And don't forget, they also offer a variety of additional services: weekly mowing, spring cleanup, mosquito and tick control, fall cleanup, aeration, overseeding. They do it all. Landscaping that fits, right? Right up here.
No, the other way.
I do want to, I know it's always backwards. So we do have a couple of comments here on our Facebook. Shout out to Katrina. Their T-Bird Sled Hockey Rec team came in 3rd place this weekend. She wanted us to mention that. Congratulations, Katrina.
Well done, Katrina.
Yeah, we'd love to see that. Our friend Samantha Robinson, the slim chances the Thunderbirds have of making the playoffs, which, we talked a little bit about, but it is slim.
Slim.
Austin Harrington asked us, how come we see Glenn Wesley and Chris Thorburn together some games at home and other games they're not even there? I think we've touched on this briefly. I don't really have a good answer to it. I think it's just strictly a numbers game. I don't remember seeing them on the bench at the same time. I do believe for your coaching staff, you're only allowed 3 guys. Again, I could be making that up, but I think they've been sort of rotating, and they are player development guys, so they are eligible to be on the bench. And they seem very active too. It seems like usually over the course of the game, they're very busy. But I think, again, when you lose your head coach, you can't just go out and hire an assistant, or maybe you can, but you say, why not? I have Chris Thorburn sitting right here in player development. I have Glenn Wesley, who's, played in the NHL forever. So why not just use these guys? But it has been interesting to see how that rotation's going. I think we've mentioned before, Adam McQuaid has been on the bench for some Providence Bruins games. So I don't think that's a rare thing, but it's something I'm going to keep my eye on more often because I never really looked over there to see who was behind the bench until our coach was gone. And now I'm checking every game. Who do we got back here today?
Speaking of coaching, talking with the St. Louis Blues Fan Forum podcast and reading some articles, it doesn't sound like St. Louis is that happy with Drew Bannister. I don't know. I think he's doing a pretty good job steadying the ship a little bit there in St. Louis. But this is interesting to me. I mean, we talked about when he did get the call up, we talked about, how nice it was for St. Louis to kind of stay in-house. And I also get the idea that, if there are some, well-proven Stanley Cup playoff coaches' names being thrown out there, and do you pass up some of the bigger names to keep Drew Bannister? I don't know. I mean, he has such a good relationship with the players, 80% of the players in their locker room right now. I'm going to be following this pretty closely, but bigger question in my head is, okay, St. Louis, if Drew Bannister isn't the direction you want to go, do you keep him in your organization? If you're telling him he's not good enough to be named your head coach, but yet, hey, stay with us in the AHL? I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, and how would Drew Bannister react to that?
Yeah.
Like, you think I'm a minor leaguer? Like, your record was X when you fired the other guy, and now it's Y, and that's not good enough for you. I mean, I think I would be a little put off by that. I don't think it's that St. Louis doesn't want him. I just think they want some other new shiny toy, which to me is never the way to run a team, especially when it comes to your head coach. A guy I think would be perfect for him is Claude Julien, but I don't think he has any interest in coaching. I think he would be just what they need, but he doesn't seem like a guy who wants to get back into it. Your team played one way, you fired the coach, brought in a new guy, and the team played almost the exact same way. So the problem is not the guy behind the bench. It's really not. And, maybe they want to keep Bannister because he's a younger coach. He's I don't say he's inexperienced, but he's maybe inexperienced at the NHL level. Even still, I don't get the impression from St. Louis fans where they've been watching games and have said, "Oh boy, this head coach is way in over his head. Oh, that was a terrible decision. You know, that loss belongs to Drew Bannister because he did X, Y, and Z." Like, I'm not really getting the impression that that's what's going on up there. So I think I think maybe the fan base has a fear of an unknown head coach that nobody really knows. And I mean, I'm kind of the opposite. Like, there are these coaches that I look at and I'm like, well, this guy's on this team now. Like, how did he get a job? Like, Peter Laviolette's like a legend. Like, maybe he's a bad example, but I feel like every time I turn on the TV, he's coaching somebody new. And I'm like, how many times has this guy been fired and hired and fired and hired? Michel Therrien and all these guys that get hired and fired and hired and fired. And
there's a reason why they keep getting fired.
John,
I don't like. I'm not a
Tortorella
fan. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the retread coaches.
No.
I feel like, you know, if it didn't work, you find something else. And I tend to believe, like, is it the roster? Did you construct a roster that doesn't complement itself? I mean, those are the questions I have for the Springfield Thunderbirds.
Right.
Is this roster? It's not when you look at the talent in a vacuum at each individual, you're like, yeah, this guy's talented. This guy's talented. This guy's talented. But do their talents and strengths counter and balance other players' weaknesses or deficiencies? And that's sort of where I feel like the Thunderbirds roster is maybe a little bit out of whack.
Yeah, definitely. And I do want to, because I have sort of a bit of a feeling on the roster and why they are the way they are. But, the Bruins, they fire Claude Julien, who's a bit of a retread, and they bring up Bruce Cassidy from Providence. They almost win a Stanley Cup. He moves on. Who do they get? Jim Montgomery, a guy who's nobody's ever heard of, and they won the President's Trophy last year. So, like, I don't know what St. Louis is looking for if it's not Drew Bannister, but it should be Drew Bannister. And if it's not, we'd love to have him back here. If I was him, I'd be like, I would think
I'll go win somewhere else.
I think there's going to be teams that if they let him go, he's going to get NHL calls. And I don't know who they're going to come from, but somebody's going to call. John Tortorella is not going to last long in Philadelphia. If I'm the Flyers and Drew Bannister is available, I pick up the phone and call. Absolutely. So
I agree there.
All right. So the roster itself, I agree with what you've been saying a lot about the defense and how, either the problem, either they don't know you say it because you say it so much more eloquently.
They can't identify, they haven't identified the problem yet, or they are incapable of fixing the problem.
Beautiful. So well said. And I think for me personally, a part of that goes back to the Mackenzie McEachern injury. And I think it's easy to whine and complain that St. Louis isn't giving us any help and they keep calling up our guys, not replenishing the system, all those easy things that I've been saying. But, like, you lose McEachern and then you lose Matthew Pekka, and all of a sudden those games where you were having these 2-goal comebacks and then you were burying the game winner in the third period, now they're 2-goal comebacks, and then you give up a goal a minute and a half later, and now you're down 2, and then you're down 4, and now the game's like totally out of hand. And it's like, what changed? And I think to me, it's those two players. I mean, how many of those late goals against the Bridgeports and teams like that was Pekka either scoring or assisting on? I mean, he was on him. And McEachern is a guy that's on the bench firing everybody up. Let's go. We're not out of this. Let's go. Keep your heads down. Let's do this. I think the loss of those two guys here down the stretch is a big reason why it's gone the way it has over the last month.
It's fair. I mean, this has been a team of consistently inconsistent, and it's been like this for a while. That to me, that's been sort of the strangest aspect of this season. How just it seems like the funk wasn't a funk. It just is who they are, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
Where you typically have a team, go through a tough stretch where they have a 3-7, 10-game stretch, but it's followed up at some point with a 7-3 or a 6-4, stretch it. So it'll balance out there, and then you kind of have the rest of your season to be what it is, where this team just has been. And again, to really, it was with the Drew Bannister call up. Shortly after that, I think they had that first week with Coach Kachuk in the lineup, or as head coach, not in the lineup. I think they beat the Americans and they won that weekend. But after that, it's just been win, loss, loss, win, tie, win. It's just been, they haven't been able to put anything together. I think this 4-game losing streak that they're on right now, they're 0-4, I think is their longest streak of any kind all season.
Yeah.
Where they're just 0-4, 3-7 in their last 10. So it's just been sort of what this team has been.
And all the losses in regulation, if they just got to overtime in any of them, they're tied with Lehigh Valley.
Sure.
And you talk about streaking, and we've been talking about them going on a streak, and you look at the division, Hershey in their last 10, 8-1, 0-1. Wilkes-Barre Scranton, 7-2-1. Charlotte, 8-1-1. So it's like everybody else is streaking. And then, of course, you talk about it, Hartford now, Hartford's only 7 points up on Springfield. They're only 3 points up on Lehigh Valley because they're 1-8-0-1 in their last 10 games. So they are in a bit of a 0-5-0-1. They're on a 6-game losing streak. So, if you just think about it, if they won half of these games that they lost here over the last month, you'd be talking about being in 5th place, maybe even passing Hartford. So, you talk about what could have been, and as you said, the points are there for the taking, and they're just leaving them. This is when you look at it and go, man, what could have been? Yeah.
Well, let's get into it, right? So they have a 3-3 coming up this week. You got to win them. So we could just kind of say that, but you do have the struggling Wolfpack Friday night. I believe you're in Hartford for that.
Yes.
This is a team that I feel, not watching them super closely other than paying attention to them in the division, really, since Rempe and a few other guys have been called up.
Will Cooley. Yeah.
Yeah. They have not been the same at all. I mean, they were right up there for a good majority of the season with Hershey and Providence at the top of the division. And then they've hit a tough stretch. So I think, again, points are there for the taking here against Hartford Friday night. Then Saturday, you're now home against Charlotte. You've highlighted Charlotte has played very good hockey as of late, but Springfield plays Charlotte well in Springfield. So does that kind of balance out? They lost the last 2 in Charlotte last time they were there. So do things kind of balance out a little bit there? We know it's a beatable team because the Thunderbirds have been able to do it this year in Springfield. And then to round out the 3-3, you're traveling up to Providence on Sunday. And I think you and I both agree that Providence, if it wasn't for their cold start, would be right up there historically with Hershey this year. They're a very good team. They are also playing a 3-3 this weekend, but at home. I think they have Utica, and then Springfield. So both teams coming off a 3-3. No excuses to be had over tired legs. Both teams will have them. You got to win all 3.
Yeah.
And you need help. You need the Phantoms to lose. So,
yeah. Real quick on Providence, they are, if you tally all their losses together, they're 4-6 in their last 10 games. And they do have a lot of new bodies because unlike St. Louis, they're actually signing college free agents. So, and they're already in the playoffs and they're already ready for playoff hockey. So is this a weekend where they start working in some young college goalie that they just picked up and some young defenseman from, wherever, Moorhead State? Like, if I'm Providence, I'm doing a lot of roster.
Sure.
I'm being really careful with my roster, and I'm going to be dressing a lot of guys and scratching a lot of guys that I wouldn't normally scratch because you are coming down to the end of the season. So, maybe Springfield can get a little lucky there where you catch a game where they're, if you're Providence, you're like, look at the Thunderbirds down there. Let's go throw our e-bug out there.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Does Lysell get a break? Does Merkloff get a break? Heading into the playoffs, you want these guys fresh, and we know no hockey player right now is fresh. They're all banged up. They're all playing with their bumps and bruises and whatnot. So, is this a weekend you're playing 3-3, albeit all three at home, but it's a 3-3? Are you taking, Sunday afternoon game and giving guys a little bit extra recovery time? I mean, very possible.
You're giving Bussy the week off. I mean, and you go DiPietro and then you go the other kid, like, why not? If I bet if this podcast was in Providence, that's what we'd be talking about is who do you rest and who do you play for the 3-3. So, so it'd be interesting. And then, I mean, then the other two games, like you said, they're all must win, but you got to take advantage of Hartford and, Charlotte right now is absolutely cooking. So, usually I like to, whenever Charlotte's in town, I like to check their, their schedule. When did they fly in? Who did they play? How long have they been here? Because that's a really tricky travel schedule coming out of there. So it does look like it is the first game on the road, but holy smokes, their next one, the rest of the season, Charlotte's on the road.
Ooh.
They play Saturday, Sunday, Wednesday, Saturday, Sunday at Springfield, at Hartford, 2 at Hershey, and then at Lehigh Valley.
Oh,
so.
Wow.
Again, that's a 5-game road trip to end the season. That's brutal.
Tough stretch.
So,
and we are scoreboard watching. So the Phantoms, who you are 4 points behind, they played 2 games this weekend. Their first is against Hershey, and then their second is against Bridgeport. So you're talking about if you are the Phantoms, you're expecting 2 points from Bridgeport. If you are the Thunderbirds, again, playing the extra game, you can, if you take care of your business, it's very plausible to see the Thunderbirds in a tie with Lehigh Valley, right? If I'm a fan, which I am, I'm going to predict Springfield to beat Hartford, and I'm going to predict Hershey to beat Lehigh Valley. I don't think too many surprises there. So now you're down 2. I'm hoping for a win. I'm not hoping. I mean, look, you need a win in Charlotte. I'm going to expect Lehigh Valley to beat Bridgeport. We know Bridgeport's going to come ready to play. We know they love this spoiler role. They've been doing it all season. But again, just, playing the odds here. And now you've got a game on Sunday with Lehigh Valley off. Again, if you take care of business, Thunderbirds, you very well could be sitting there tied with Lehigh Valley after the weekend. Again, now I'm saying all this knowing I'm saying, the Thunderbirds can win 3 games in a row. They haven't done this all year. So, tough task. We know they're going for it. They're not laying down. Possible. It's possible.
Yeah. It is just frustrating, though, looking at it. And, Lehigh Valley's lost 3 out of their last 4 games. They have 1 in overtime. So they have 3 points out of their last 4 games.
Yeah.
And really, if Springfield just gets a couple games to overtime, just a simple point would have been so helpful. But, 2 of those games against Bridgeport, they got 5. They have 6 left, 2 against Bridgeport. So let's go Sound Tigers. I mean.
Yeah. Islanders.
So, dude, they're always going to be the Sound Tigers. Always going to be the Sound Tigers. I don't know why they even made that switch. That Sound Tiger was so cool. And now their logo kind of is terrible.
It is.
All right. Well, I don't know. Any final words here from you, Matt?
Other than my usual wrap up, I don't know if you've got anything you wanted to add.
Well, I just wanted to give a shout out one more time to our friends at YOLO Healthcare Consulting, bridging the gap for those traversing the healthcare landscape. To our friends at White Lion Brewing in Amherst and in downtown Springfield, your go-to spot for T-Birds games, and landscaping that fits, proudly serving the East Longmeadow, Agawam, Longmeadow, Springfield, and Wilbraham areas. That's all. Pay the bills.
Thank you to our fans. We love the feedback on our social medias. Keep them coming. We're happy to bring things up. Congratulations to Trina and her sled hockey team for that 3rd place finish. Awesome job. Big weekend coming up, 3-3. Let's go T-Birds.